also goes on to say that they were actually kept in chains, chained to one another for 6 weeks. So you see a couple of the images there of them arriving on the tarmac yesterday just outside of Paris, greeted by the president, by the foreign minister. Now, obviously, it was a big day for the government. They had to actually convey, they took advantage of the opportunity to say, yes, we suffered many months of uncertainty, and the French citizens are kept hostage abroad, kidnapped, obviously, as we've seen in the Middle East, in Africa. But here, obviously, they were quick to triumph, to be quite triumphant in the rescue of all 4 journalists alive, safe and sound. And as the Parisien says, after having undergone, enormous difficulties, life and death fears, obviously, for the families. But in the end, obviously, we're going to see some questions posed as to, how it is they came to be freed.
Now, the Figaro leads with the story, too, and talking about solidarity among the French and among journalists.
Yes. Now, the Figaro quotes the president as saying, we don't give up on our own. And the Figaro, actually, a rare exception in the Figaro's editorial stance, taking a moment perhaps to agree with the president, and saying that this was a moment of solidarity because it showed that the French government never abandons its people, however long it takes to get them back. But of course, at the same time, it raised the question as to how they got them back. How was it that after 10 months these 4 journalists were rescued? And it raised some questions as to it's the almost eternal question with regard to French policy: was any ransom paid? The questions asked across the board.
Right. Well, there are questions about the role of the French government and what did it do concretely to help free those hostages?
Well, the president repeated on Sunday that quite definitively, the French government does not pay a ransom. And the Figaro reports on a number of possibilities, first of which could be that, yes, the French government doesn't perhaps pay directly a ransom, but does it pay a third party? Are negotiations undertaken such that a third party might pay in terms of money, in terms of swapping hostages, in terms perhaps of arms deals? It is speculation, I hasten to add, because not just the Figaro, but Libération ran a piece by the AFP news agency saying that, there are a number of possibilities of the French government not, being able to say that truthfully, that it doesn't pay directly, but at the same time, perhaps continuing through with a policy which has been questioned for years now, because a number of such rescues have undertaken. Yes, the official line is to acknowledge the role, for example, of intelligence services. In other words, to acknowledge the role of the government insofar as it's able to say that we were involved, but without saying that it paid any ransom. Of course, because that would imply, that would give the any future hostage takers some kind of encouragement to undertake future kidnappings.
So still not a lot of information coming out of the government on whether it pays that ransom or not.
No, and they're probably going to maintain a stance of silence, as Libération says. It actually quotes a couple of people who say, there's one person, a leader of a group of, basically it's like a hostage support group in Syria, and she says, we don't even know if any ransom was paid, but it's probably better not to ask and just let them get on with however it is that they actually manage to undertake these rescues. It's better for us not to ask any questions. The less we know, the better.
Now, in a completely different story in the French news, it's the 70th anniversary of the vote for women in France. Only the 70th.
Yes, only you noticed that, didn't you?
Yeah.
France was relatively late in the game. So it was about 70 years ago, 1944, that the announcement was made by General de Gaulle. 1945, just a short year later, it was the first municipal elections that women participated in. And just for a couple of reference points, Canada introduced the vote for women in 1918, US a year later, 1919, and the UK in 1928.
All right. Well, France leading a little bit behind there, but
15 years.
They still got it in, though, so that's okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kyle Brown, for that French press review. Coming up later in the program, our Focus Report takes a closer look at the U.S.'s strategic partnership with Romania as tensions continue to flare in neighboring Ukraine. Stay with us here on France 24.